Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Mean Green Nation podcast. Welcome to it. Folks, I know it's homecoming week, right? Big football weekend, all that good stuff. But it's also basketball season, and that means we got to talk some basketball. I don't know that our schedules, all out or finalized. I think we have some non-conference slots. I saw some stuff coming in today, but to talk about it, I know you can't see him. He's hidden. Is Mr. Greg, or Mr. No Names, please? Is that what we should call you now?
You can call me whatever you want to call me. I
All
like
right.
to bounce back and forth, change it up, keep it fresh every year.
Yeah. All right. Well, as usual, he has a different name every season, but we're here to talk some basketball again. Last we discussed the squad. It was, uh, I would say that it was an incomplete squad. Like there were injuries. We didn't get to see that squad at full potential, right? We didn't get to see Reuben Jones, now part of the Michigan, program. Uh, like really get a lot of minutes with what's his name, Edwards, who's now part of the Vanderbilt program. Aaron Scott didn't. He's not going to finish his career here. It's a definite closing of a chapter or a book, a volume, if you will, and it's just a whole new group of dudes that I'm excited about because I think it's yeah. I like looking over. We'll talk about it in a second, but I mean, what immediately stands out to you when you look at this roster or this season or whatever? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it's good to be with you. A lot of news coming out today. Um, you know, you said the schedules kind of open up. We added somebody today, so that's out there. New rules or how you get selected to the NIT that came out there today. So we're 2 weeks away. So, but getting back to your question, I think the first thing that jumps off the page when you look at this roster is something that we haven't seen under McCaslin and Hodge in the first year was length and athleticism. Like I think that's what comes to mind when I look at it, when I look at the players that they added. And so that for me, that's reason for optimism.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody gets a little turned off every season by college basketball a little bit because you're like, who are we even rooting for anymore? Like, I gotta learn, like 12 new guys' names. You know what I mean? And like that's fine. I don't expect everybody to be, to know these guys. If you see them walking down the street, like, oh, that's Aiton Wright, and he averaged that, whatever. It's fine. And some of these teams, as much as we want to complain, a lot of people spent some money even to do the NIL thing to keep some of those guys here, and then they ended up going on somewhere else. But whatever, like it's the new normal, and until like there's some hard rules in place and some contracts and whatever, it's going to be like this. And I think all you could do is just operate under the in the environment that you're in, and not not play used to was or wish it was or something like that, because that's not going to get you any wins. Uh, so I'm just gonna list names, right? Uh, this is roughly on the according to what is it, the I forget the site, the one everybody uses, but it's so like junior seniors like Rondell Walker, Jasper Floyd, Latrell Jossel, how are we saying that? Aiton Wright, Maddie Stone, your favorite, Jonathan Massey, and Mulai Sissoko. Or those are juniors, rising seniors, I think is the term du jour. Sophomore to juniors, Grant Newell, Brennan Lorient, freshman Brock Weiss, Alex Cotton. Brock Weiss, such a cool name. I don't know if he's going to be a great player, but it's the coolest name, perhaps. And then was it Tyron Mason is the high school kid, right? That's roughly the roster as we know it. Did I list them right?
There was two high school kids there. You had Tyron Mason and Baron Smith Jr.
There you go.
That
Yeah.
they added in a big guy.
So if you, I think it's helpful, just like I said, for the casuals. You're like, okay, I know last year we gave the ball to that Edwards kid and said, go score for us. And that worked out. He was great. He was a spark plug. If I had a criticism, I think I say one thing I didn't like is that he was like, okay, I'm just gonna attack the rim at 110%, and that would work a lot of the time because the dude, he would get 20, 30 points. But sometimes, especially late in the games, it would be too much, too hard, too fast, kind of miss a layup hard, or they'd block it, or something bad would happen. And I wished that he had like a change up, like let me do a little hezzy, maybe go a little slower under control. And our guy that seemingly we're going to ask to go do scoring for us, Aiton Wright, he has that kind of game, at least in my eyes. And I
Hmm.
think he's the big get for us. So I mean, like, tell us more about him. Yeah,
I mean, he was a guard for Drake last year, and I mean, if you didn't pay attention to college basketball, I mean, Drake was they won the Missouri Valley. They had a great team. They had a great their coach ended up, I think he went to West Virginia to
yeah,
be their head guy. So, I mean, Aiden Wright, he's been around. This will be his third team, but like what you said there, the hesitation moves can kind of score from every different level of the floor. I think where he struggled the most was finishing at the rim. And so that was something that he'll have to do better here. But I don't know if I would say if he's our top get, but he's definitely the person when I look at the roster that he has to be the dude that scores for UNT. There's not a lot of offensive weaponry in this coming from other teams. Like there's potential there, but the dude that has to score in my mind is Aiden Wright, and he can score like you said, he could score from the mid range. I think he's a very good mid range shooter. He can shoot the three very well. But again, it just comes down to can he finish at the rim? That was kind of the one weakness in his game last year.
yeah, and that's one of those things. Like everybody, you say we need a score, right? I don't know that like uh, who am I? I'm blanking on everybody. I don't know. You don't need guys that are the same. You don't need Tyler Perry to score the same way that you know anybody else did. Javion Hamlet did. But you need somebody to score, right? And then once you have that, you can kind of adjust your offense. You have some offensive principles, like this is the way we do a pick and roll, right? But if you have a pick and pop shooter, then do some pick and pops, right? But if you have a rim runner, do some rim running, right? And then you need complementary things off of that. If you have a pick and pop guy, you need somebody cutting to the basket. And if you have a rim runner, you need somebody stepping out, right? Just to give balance to the game. And so, I just to support your point there, right? Like I think of all the guys who are like, okay, who can get their own shot? Who's gonna be our late game kind of control the ball down the stretch? I think it's right. I'm. I think you absolutely need somebody else, and that North Texas team won the NIT had Tyler Perry. Obviously, everybody remembers that. But Kai Huntsberry did a ton of that too. He had some game winners. He had some go get us some points kind of things. You need to have a one or two. Like a 1A, 1B, or a clear two in my mind, or somebody that's just like a whole team that just lights out shooting. I think it's a lot of burden to carry to be the primary scorer all the time. But it could be that that's the case that what we have there, and that's maybe a weakness when we go forward and we're like, how come we can't score? It could be that we just have one guy that we're asking to do that. But that's just me. That's like from the tape, looking at them a little bit and then trying to figure out where they fit in. Um, just here's my assessment. Right, ball handlers. You got Floyd, Jostle, Wright. Like guys that can bring the ball up the floor, or guys that you want the ball in their hands. Scorers, I have Wright. Shooters, like guys that you just, standstill shooters, that's Floyd, Josso, Wright. Massey a little bit. He showed some things, but I don't know. It's gonna be, and then Newell, and then your bigs. You got Sissoko, well, obviously Vice, Newell, Lorient, and then your big wings. You got your Matty Stone, your favorite, Massey and Walker. But that's kind of like I said. This is rough, and a lot of this is what I looked at like back in May. Hopefully everybody has development, and hopefully everybody's NBA caliber now, right? Obviously that's our hope and dreams, but it's not what it's gonna be.
Well, I mean, you talk about the three ball handlers. Last year, really kind of for the first time in a long time, we were a heavy pick and roll team. But, that pick and roll was more pick and pop
Hmm.
because your pick guy was often, it was Aaron Scott, right? And he was deadly from the three type thing. But this year, we have more rim runners. So you're going to put the ball in the hands of guys like Jostle, like Wright, and Floyd. All of them are really good passers, really good turnover efficiency type of guys. Um, and then you have the rim runners, which are going to be the Brennan Lorient, the Grant Newell, possibly Sissoko. That's not something they've asked of him before. But those two guys, the Newell and Lorient, which surprisingly they had a scrimmage this past weekend against SMU, and those were two dudes that were at the top of the food chain when it came to scoring. So, and Newell was apparently the guy that led the team in scoring. So maybe that was SMU couldn't handle the pick and roll because they have a bunch of new guys. You don't really know how to defend as a team, and they were able to get those rim type of runs. So that's one thing. I think you talk about who's going to be that one B, and I don't really, I don't know if we know yet. You could point to Latrell Jostle, but he's maybe the type of guy that's going to come off the bench. Jonathan Massey, I kind of see him in that role of just he does a little bit of everything. Like, he's not a great shooter, but what he does do is he provides rebounding. That was one area that we were weak as a team last year, was defensive rebounding. He provides some stability there. How well you talk about progression, like Rondell Walker wasn't a great shooter last year. He was starting to get back to what he was his freshman year. If we can get him close to that 34, 35% from 3 point range, then that takes, ideally what you were mentioning, you want to have the pick and roll, the rim runner, but then have those guys on the wings that you have some type of relief valve that puts pressure on teams. You can't really collapse the middle. And I don't know if we have that yet. Like, I think that one dude that you haven't mentioned a bunch was the freshman, the Mason kid. Supposedly he's a dude that can fill it up. And Alex Cotton, how much has he progressed? He was a good shooter when he was in high school. If those two guys can be, it's tough to sit here and project and say like two freshman kids are gonna,
Yeah.
be good scorers. But I'd like to see one of those guys fill or kind of find a niche. And I think they're dudes that can shoot the ball and maybe shoot the ball better than some of these other dudes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough, right, to get a dude, a guy, and like especially a freshman, and be like, oh yeah, he's gonna. Because I think one they kind of hit a wall unless they're like just 5-star dudes and like this guy should be in the NBA, and then like then those are different. That's just a completely different class of human. I think the type of freshman that we're going to get here in North Texas can contribute a little bit in a small little way, but I don't know. I don't know what they bring, and so that's why I haven't talked about them. I haven't seen them. I'm not in practice every day, right? So it's very tough. I think you're right. Like you'd like to see something from it, but I think the dudes we're going to rely on, and I guess we'll talk a little bit about Latrell Jostle a little bit. He's out of SFA. He was at Kansas, right? I forget for how long.
Yeah, he originally started with Kansas.
Yeah, he's 6'1". I say, like my gut take was that he's a little bit less of an explosive Jason Edwards. Like Jason Edwards would like jump 17 feet in the air and shoot the three, which personally makes me think that you're a little bit. It's hard to get the same consistency if you're just jumping as high as you can every time. So I mean, but whatever. So Josh is a little bit more standstill, but he shoots it well. He can shoot. He has some range. I think everybody has range nowadays. They kind of train it. I like him as a catch and shoot guy. and I don't know how much he can create on his own. Where it's like, we need a three. Let me cook some guy up and then do a step back. I don't know. We're gonna get that from him, but Jason Edwards shot well when he was standing in the corner sometimes, and it would be nice to see Jostle do some of that. Like one because it's less work to create a three if you're just
Yeah.
standing there. Your whole shot motion ready and loaded, and you just letting it go. Versus, again, cooking a guy doing a step back. That's just not what you want. I think what was it? His per 40 was something like 23 per 40 minutes and like 19 per game. And I like that. You guy can score a little bit. I think what we know about the recruiting acumen here is that Hodge and his staff and the version of it before, they're good at identifying undersized guards that can score and still continue that, right? Because it was like Jason Edwards, like, well, he scored here. Can he score at North Texas? Yes, he could. And I believe that whatever you saw Joss will do at SFA, we'll see him do here. And there's going to be that normal, all right, trying to figure out where he fits in or something like that. Sure, but I think he's going to be able to do some little scoring here. But I don't know. I don't. That's the part. It's like Aiton Wright has done it at a higher level. I think more
Yeah,
consistent.
I
And
would
so
agree.
yeah. So then that's 1A. I think Jostle's probably that 1B you're hoping, but unproven.
Yeah, I would say that you were saying that you hope that he's a guy that could stand in the corner and hit threes. I don't think he. That's it's one area on his shot chart that doesn't check out. Like he above the break, basically the 45s or above the free throw line, the 3 point area, top of the key. Sorry,
Yeah.
um, good shooter from there. Good shooter from mid range. Where he stands out to me is that he was drawing like 4.3 free throw attempts per game,
Yeah.
so maybe he's the dude that you're putting in the pick and roll situations because a guy like Aiden Wright was a good spot up shooter from the corners. Same thing with the other guard, Jasper Floyd. Again, he was a good shooter from the corners. So maybe that's what you're doing. You're putting it, Jossel wasn't the point guard at Stephen F. Austin. He was their backup point guard, but he spent time playing that there. For us, I think Floyd will be the number one point guard, but I think all three of those guys will be interchangeable.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned earlier, they're all going to put them in the pick and roll situations. And I think different times will dictate what you get. Whereas maybe Jostle's the dude that's trying to draw a foul, and then you have your shooters in the corner. Whereas maybe Aiden Wright's the type of guy that gets to the rim, or same thing with Jasper Floyd. So I think a lot of our offense is going to come from those three guys, how much they can create off of each other.
Yeah, and I think I said corner, but I kind of I mean, like Edwards, they'd stick him in the corner sometimes, and even Tyler Perry when he would do off-ball stuff, and you'd say, all right, Kai Huntsberry, you're going to be like the primary dude in the pick and roll, initiating the offense. We'd have either Tyler Perry coming off some screens that start in the corner, or he would just hang out in the corner or whatever. But yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. It's like, can you can you do some catch and shooting, right? Because if you can do that, then you can stay on the floor. Because we know you can handle the ball, right? And we know you can do this, that, and the other. And so if everybody, and I think this is what's exciting to me about this squad is that there's a lot of guys that have similar profiles, a lot of overlapping, skills. Like, hey, I can catch and shoot, and I can handle the ball. Hey, I can catch and shoot, I can handle the ball. Hey, I can get to the rim, catch and shoot, and handle the ball. And I like all that, right? Because then if you're a defense, there's no okay. Well, we'll put our worst guy here, and all he has to worry about is catching and shooting. Well, now the ball swing, swing, swing. You close out. Well, he can score off the catch, right? He can catch and attack. Also, he's a good passer, so you can't even just be like, well, we'll just meet him halfway, force him to make a pass in traffic. Well, he can pull it out, hit a mid range. He can swing the ball. Now you have another guy catch and shoot, dude. He's wide open, right? And so everybody gets more dangerous when you have overlapping skills, and everybody's a good basketball player. You mentioned Jasper Floyd. He's a lefty, right? I think he's a lefty. Is he a lefty?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he's a lefty. I mean, if you could go out there on the open market and find the closest replacement to Reuben Jones as possible, I think Jasper Floyd is
yeah,
it. Like I think that he was tops in the nation in steals per game, great assist man, a really good defensive rebounder, which again, like I mentioned before, they struggled at. Probably not as good of a shooter though as Ruben, and so that's where you see the drop off. But I mean, you'll sacrifice some of that if you get the defense, if you get the rebounding, and if you know that he can create. This will be. I think he was a JUCO kid before he spent time at Fairfield last year, which they were a good team. They won 20 plus games, didn't get in the tournament. So this will be like his second year. And how many times have we seen those guys their second year in college basketball, specifically at UNT, those JUCO dudes, their second year is that year where they really shine.
Hmm. Yeah, I liked a lot. I'm looking at my notes right now, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember he did this. I remember. I think the announcement said he's a versatile dude. I mean, you're talking up there too. I like, hey, you're part of a winning program, right? Because then you kind of know what it takes. You know, like what it takes to
Yeah.
win. You know what winning basketball looks like. So even if you're like, hey, I did this in this winning program. When you go to this new one, you're like, I'm not. Maybe I don't have to do this, but I know that a winning program requires B, C, D, E, and I could do one of those things too, whatever that is. And I like, you always like winners. I think North Texas, I don't know if it's a secret. We like winners. We're like, hey, this guy won at the JUCO level. We'll bring him in, right? This guy has won a championship, at one of these lower divisions. Let's bring him in. And that translates, right? Because winning basketball is winning basketball. A lot of the things apply. Now, obviously, like you need the tools, the physical tools, and all that other stuff. Sure. But in terms of like mental wherewithal, like the attitude, that kind of stuff, they're getting guys they're part of winning programs, and I love that. Floyd, he's 6'3". I think Reuben Jones is like what 6'4", 6'5". Is that
I
what he
think he
is?
was like 6'5",
Yeah.
and he
So
had a pretty long wingspan too.
yeah. So like he's not quite as like long. I don't know that we're gonna say, all right, you're gonna be a lockdown dude, or kind of. He's not gonna do the exact same things that Reuben Jones did or does or will do for Michigan. But I like it. He did a lot of different things. I thought he could defend. He handled the ball. I love that. He could push the ball. He can score. He's a lefty, which I always like because it's weird. It's always hard guarding lefties. It just kind of throws you off a little bit. You can do a little catch and shoot. I mean, and again, it was at Fairfield, so you can be like, well, does that translate? We'll see, right? We don't need him to do all of those things, but just some good things. If you could be pretty good and solid and consistent in any one of those areas for North Texas, that would be great. There's a couple guys. I was like, let's talk about this dude, Jonathan Massey. He has length. He's 6'6", and he went to McNeese and then Longwood. I thought he had good handles. He looked okay as a shooter, but he looks like was he the foul guy? I think he was kind of somebody was a foul guy. He looked like a yeah. I mixed up my notes here, but uh, he seems sort of like we need a guy to do some Aaron Scott things, and I think some of that's also Grant Newell. We'll talk about him in a second, but I just have Massey right here. What did you think of this kid? Again, from McNeese and Longwood, and he's out of Houston, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I liked him. I think he didn't have like the sudden twitch or whatever, but he's a good defender.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of why they liked him. They liked him for his length. He could defend multiple positions. He can play the two. He can play the three. I don't really think they're going to play him at the four. I think that'll be more Newell and Lorient type of thing. But he could do it if he needed to. For me, like again, what stood out was the defense and the rebounding. Like his defensive rebound percentage was in the 98th percentile, which again, that was how many times we struggled mightily last year at defensive rebounding. And we you hear Ross Hodge talk about getting that first shot stop and then getting back down the floor. We really struggled at that last year. It hurt us multiple times in games, and I think Jonathan Massey and Rondell Walker. I think those are two dudes that are very similar in their skill set and how they play, and so you're just like you said, you're switching them out at three. If Massey comes off the floor, if he's starting or Walker, it's not a big drop off to the next guy who's ever playing that three position.
Yeah, I mean, 6'6", like you said, doesn't really have that leap off the floor. There's one thing everybody liked about Aaron Scott, and was like, oh, he could be an NBA dude just because he had like almost next level athleticism. I think Massey's. I mean, he's just a big dude. He's gonna bother a lot of people. Like he's big. I mean, he's long. His per 40 showed like a 17 point per game score. I don't know if that again would translate. And I don't know that they're gonna ask him to do a lot of that stuff. Like, all right, let's go get Massey some points because let's give him the ball. He's gonna get us some points. I think a lot of his points will come like Rondell Walker, like Aaron Scott his first couple years here, where it's like hustle things. Like, yeah, you got to rebound, go put it back up. Fly in to get a put back. Run the floor, get some easy layups, that kind of thing. And I think he slates to kind of fit in there in that role. That kind of I want to say like a 3-and-D guy, but I think he can shoot it a little bit. But just a
Yeah,
a hustle point kind of dude.
I mean his best area for shooting was in the corners. Like he was a really good 3 point shooter from the corner. So I mean that fits what they want to do.
So let's talk a little bit about the. So I'll mention this one because I said the foul guy. The one I was thinking of, again, top of my head, I didn't have, I couldn't turn the page quick enough. Was Brennan Lorient? He was an FAU dude. He was a foul machine. He was like at, basically it was like 3 minutes, like 7 points, and then he gets fouled out. It's ridiculous, right? It was like 9 minutes, two fouls, 4 minutes, one foul. It's like, dude, quit fouling everybody. But he's going for blocks. I think Ross Hodge and that whole thing, they're gonna kind of take the wild out of him. Like yes, it's great to block, but you don't need to just swing and don't take these big hacks into the air and fouling these dudes. Um,
Yeah, I think he's going to flourish here. I think the three guys between Newell, Lorient, and Vice, look who they were behind. Newell at Cal was behind Tyson, who was a first round NBA draft pick. Lorient didn't get any. They used him as a four, so he's behind John L. Davis. He can also play five, but he's not going to get minutes behind Golden.
yeah,
So and then the same thing with Vice at Creighton. I mean, he's behind the big dude Kalkbrenner, who's
yeah,
also an NBA first round type of prospect. All three of these dudes didn't see the floor. They were behind NBA guys. I all think that they have the potential to really flourish in the system that is here. I think when you talk about Lorient type of guy, what comes to mind is we haven't had somebody with his type of athleticism that can play above the rim on the offensive side. Like
yeah,
he's a rim runner. He's a shot blocker. Aaron Scott was 6'6". He could block, or he's 6'7". He could block shots. Lorient's 6'9". He's going to be a little bit more of a disruptor underneath. We haven't had a shot blocker or rim protector. He can guard both the 4 and the 5 positions. He can play out on the wing. So not necessarily like if he's playing the 5, he's not going to clog up the lane maybe like a Sissoko. So I think but he's going to get a lot of his points, like you said, from hustle points. Or if we ever do run fast break, I mean, last year 19% of his points came from the fast break, 94th percentile. So I mean, I think it's one of those type of pickups that you said already on here that a high value type of pickup. It fits a role, it fits a need for this team.
I love dunker spot big men. Like just somebody that can finish. It's like a tight end that can catch in the end zone. It just unlocks your offense. You're just like, oh, everything's so easy now. You have a big body you can throw the ball up to, right? Like I said, in football, in basketball, it makes your point guard better. It makes everybody better. It makes everybody just suddenly a better player because you have a guy that can jump up real high and dunk the ball from 2 to 4 feet away. And I think if Laurent could you know, do that, right? He doesn't have to be. You don't need to throw the ball in him and let him do Kareem Abdul-Jabbar stuff. He doesn't need to be Akeem Olajuwon. He doesn't need to be Tim Duncan. He doesn't need to be the dude from Purdue, with it, Edie, right? He just needs to be catch, dunk, catch. Even if he's like catch and throw it up and catch it again and does a little Angel Reese, do a little Angel Reese there. That's fine because it's gonna get your coaches mad at you. Like, well, you need to get that rebound, and you're like, oh, it's gonna throw you off the game because there's somebody just jumping around with long arms. I love that. You have somebody in there just bothering you, like, God, you're just like a pogo stick, just bouncing around out here. I hate it. I like it. I was excited about that, just seeing him being able to finish in and around the rim like that. That's good, and that's a little bit of a Grant Newell. thing. I didn't see too much. He's bigger, right? The other, Lorian is 6'9", 200. I think he was listed. Newell is 6'9", 220, which is a little bit more solid. He's a big man, very big man in college kind of deal. I thought he
Okay,
had
well,
range and athleticism. Good.
look at who the top two teams specifically are in our conference. It's Memphis and UAB.
Yeah.
And they have dudes at that four position that are very athletic and they're big and they can finish. Yaks, player of the year. We didn't have somebody that could match up with him last year. You're putting Aaron Scott. Aaron Scott got bullied. I don't think Grant Newell's going to get bullied by him. Then you go down to Memphis. They added the dude from Illinois who's either going to play the 4 or the 5. I think his name is Danja or whatever. He's really good.
Yeah.
He was on the first team all AAC. So you got to have guys that match up with these other teams at the top of your conference. Same thing like South Florida last year. We continuously got bullied in that 4 slot, and I don't think that with when you added Newell, you added Lorient, it allows you to not be bullied in those positions. You added some more athleticism, some more, depth to a position that was a weakness last year.
Yeah, I think that's the deal is that you have to have some athleticism, right? Like you can get away with like, well, we got this tiny little point guard here. Like, okay, well, you better have somebody somewhere that can make up for that. Just whatever. Or you just like I think North Texas. Hold on, give me 2 seconds. Okay. All right. Um, like you look a couple years ago, right? Like North Texas had I can't even. We had an undersized team, but we made up with it with like a lot of effort and some guys that could jump around and do some things, right? They were sort of surprising, but that catches up with you once we got to the tournament. And what was it, Villanova? Like there's like, oh yeah, well we have size and also effort and also skill, and so then you know we're just gonna beat you.
Yeah, I
At a
mean,
certain
for so
point, you just
long,
need it.
you had Zach Simmons, you had Abu Usman, which were more like your traditional centers, like with their back to the basket. They weren't guys that, were going to play above the rim. And I loved them for what they did because they were that efficient big guy. They made the shots underneath the rim. They did what you needed to do. They played great defense, all those type of things. But, at the same time, they did get bullied by some people, right? And they would miss easy where instead of dunking it, they were just trying to lay it up. And you're like, dude, just go and authoritize that man.
And we had some dudes. I forget the guy's name that transferred a couple of years ago. He was like a freshman. It looked like he was going to be a guy that could just jump up and dunk on people. And I think if there's been a weakness in this roster, it's been finding that guy. I like I like Sissoko, but he's more of just a strength. He's not a jump kind of guy, and having somebody that can jump over people is nice, or just jump up and catch a ball. It just creates a lot of different things for the offense. Like either you're getting rebounds or you're being aggressive, you're being dangerous scoring. Like I said, just having somebody that's gonna be there, and it changes the dynamics for the squads. And then defensively, somebody can jump up and like block something, right? Get an extra rebound, just kind of be a little bit of a Dennis Rodman. 'Cause Dennis Rodman was just ridiculous. There's a lot of that just athleticism. Uh, so you mentioned Brock Weiss, right? Let's bring him back up. He's a big old dude, 6'10" dude from Creighton. He played wide receiver in high school, which I think was just a lot about just throwing the ball up to him. Uh, it's like, all right, it's end zone time. Let's throw it up to Brock. See if he can't catch it. I think his dad was like a big man. He's a offensive line coach, right? So, like all that translates to me like he should have some decent footwork. He should know about some leverage. I don't know about his game, like how good he is, catching the ball, finishing. ball handling, which includes dribbling, passing, you know, just holding it, not getting it ripped away, all that other good stuff. He seems sort of like a project to me, but you tell me what your thoughts are on this guy.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I look. He was a 4 star type of kid. Um, More of your traditional. I would, you know what? He's not really the traditional play with your back to the basket type of guy. I think he can be, but I think what sets him apart is he's a really good 3 point shooter for a five guy. So whereas maybe somebody like Grant Newell and Lorient are pick and roll, they're the rim runners type of guys. Maybe you have a Brock Weiss out there who's a really good 3 point shooter, and he's your pick and pop guy. And when your five guy is your pick and pop type of guy, that really opens up your offense.
Yeah.
That really opens up your offense. And so that'll be interesting. Like you said, he didn't get a lot of playing time. He played behind really good guys at Creighton, but Creighton has been known for good big guys. They brought him in there. So there's talent there, but how much does he get to showcase that, and there's opportunity, with, how much growth did we see out of Sissoko, coming off the NIT going into last year, everybody thought like he was going to take another step and be, really, really good. Whereas it looked like he played in the off season a lot last year. And I think that kind of hampered him. It looked like he took a step back. And so does he take another step forward? Does Vice eat into some of that playing time? Again, where they were weak last year was depth in the front court, and this kind of offers you a different tool
Yeah.
in your toolbox.
Yeah, I think so. Like we relied a ton on Robert Allen last year, and yeah, I think he's kind of he was a motor guy, and I think we were sort of burning him out. We really needed more from Sissoko, sort of a little bit that NIT Sissoko that we saw, and he was great and did, but he didn't really have that last season. He was some of it was like injury, and he played in the summer and all that good stuff. Um, I think getting some depth, some options, like you said, some different tools. You get a Brock Weiss out there, you get a Newell, you get who else did we mention? Even like a Massey there, and you kind of see what you have, right? You got what was it, like a Lorient? You can go smallish, right, with a Lorient, a Newell. You can go real big. You can throw out there maybe a couple times, throw like a Sissoko and a Vice, and say, let's just have some big dudes out here, right? And you can have some big wings with Massey at the three. So you can get real big for a second if you need to, right? But you can also be athletic with a Massey, a Newell, a Lorient, and then you have a ball handler, and then maybe throw like was it a Floyd out there too to kind of be you know a versatile guy, kind of fits in wherever you need him to. I like that aspect of it is that you can do a lot of different things. I think that gives the coaching staff more options, right? For those times in a basketball season where you run into to things not working, right? Like it's some depth things maybe, like guys are injured out of the lineup. I felt like last season with our projected starting lineup, we looked real good, right? I was like, oh man, we're gonna have like Jason Edwards out here. We'll have Reuben Jones, and he's gonna kind of be unlocked. A little bit of Aaron Scott, and then you kind of. But I don't know that we ever had that. Like Rondell Walker didn't play for a long time. It was never. It never seemed like we had the ideal North Texas lineup out there. And then
Yeah.
the guy we're asking Matt Stone to do a lot, and like I said, I know he's your favorite player and all that, but we're sort of asking and maybe even expecting some guys to do some things that they're not really capable of doing. In this, version of North Texas, there's a lot of not proven dudes, right? That's why I said like Aiton Wright's probably the most proven guy. You can look, there's a lot of potential everywhere else, but you can see how it could all fit, right? You can say, all right, Wright's gonna be our scorer, but hey, it could be Jostle too, or maybe Jostle's the dude and Aiton Wright's is the 1B. Maybe I have it wrong the whole time. But then you could see other guys like we need some defenders. We got Rondell Walker, we got Massey a little bit, maybe Floyd a little bit can kind of be one of those lockdown dudes or a primary defender. Maybe they rotate through it. Maybe they just kind of go suffocating. Maybe they change it up and get a little bit more pressure here and there. Whereas I think previously North Texas. Um, Here's the other part. Let's get into a different discussion. I still think we're going to go with 8 guys, and then trying to figure out who those 8 reliable guys are. Kind of starts now. What that looks like. And so, I mean, I don't really expect Stone. I don't really expect Vice. And then I think if you look at all the new guys, like probably Massey. I don't know that he's. I think one of those guys is going to be not in the rotation, right? It was like a couple years ago where Martinez sounded like he was going to be real good, right? He's like, oh, he's a shooter. He can catch and shoot. He's going to be a lot of things, but he just fell out the rotation, right? And some of it is just because he's letting dudes get rebounds over him and then bricking threes. I mean, it happens, right? It just kind of it's what it is. So I mean, yeah, all that to say, I'm like basically agreeing with you. Is it's versatility. It gets me excited. Some options, and like some answers to questions that we were asked last year, and we didn't answer them very well. Like, hey, can you hang with these dudes? They're gonna bully you. Our answer was no, right? It didn't happen. And like, hey, can we get some guy? Can we turn a guy that was primarily an effort dude in Aaron Scott? Can we turn him into a primary scorer? The answer was no. We could not do that. And hey, could Reuben Jones stay healthy and become that guy for us, right? Leading scorer? The answer was no. He couldn't do it. And so, right, we went out and got a couple guys that can score, right? Jostle. And then we're gonna ask that question: hey, can we develop some of these other dudes and maybe unlock some of their potential? And that I can get behind that. I don't hate that idea from this squad.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you. I think one area where I don't necessarily agree with you, I think they're going to be a nine deep team. I think they're going to go close to 9 or 10 because I think when you're looking at that nine spot, you're looking at Matthew Stone, Brock Weiss, Tyron Mason, Alex Cotton. I think somebody out of that group will find a role to play. It's hard for me not to see Ross Hodge playing Matthew Stone. Like it's just hard because he's the culture warrior, he's the
Yeah.
ultimate teammate type thing. So, but I think one of those that out of that group is going to get some playing time. I just don't know exactly which one it'll be. So I think there'll be a nine deep team. I think when you look at kind of what happened last year, and you hinted at it some, was we never had that look of a complete team, and really that was because do all the injuries that they
Yep.
went through, and so maybe Hodge looks at it this way: is like I got to get 9 guys ready, 9, 10 guys ready to survive the season because I mean their schedule it is grueling, even though it's not completely done. But I mean some of the teams that they're playing that they're going on the road and facing I mean, it is very difficult mid-major type of teams, which makes me love it. Put it out there on Twitter. I was like, it's like Ross Hodge is building the old school bracket busters, but just for North Texas with some of the teams that they're bringing in. So
uh, let's. That's a good transition. Great stuff. Radio professional here. This guy. Let's talk about that schedule. I think the big announcement today was we're gonna get what Appalachian State in here. Is that what it
yeah,
was? Was that the 20th? I saw. I don't see they post. They haven't posted it on
no,
the
but it
official
looks
schedule
like
yet.
somebody said December 20th was when they were going to play.
Yeah, that's what I saw as well. So I'll let you, since you're the most familiar with the schedule, because I haven't looked at it prior to click and record on this show. Uh, let's. What most excites you about November? I see Evansville, Minnesota,
McNeese
McNeese.
State. I think it starts right away with McNeese State. I think that just jumps off the page at you. Will Wade, that's a loaded roster.
Yeah.
Everybody loves to be on McNeese State. They're a top 100 team. A lot of the metrics have North Texas above them, but I think most people believe that hey, McNeese is better than us. I mean, they brought in a guy that you're probably familiar with, the dude from St. Louis, and Sear Parker. He was the leading scorer for St. Louis last year. They brought in a dude from Arizona State, from somebody from Old Miss. They brought back some of their guys from last year. Um, I think like when I was trying to write up the preview, their starting five is all within the first team and second team in the Southland. Like there's 3 dudes in the first team and two guys in the second team. So again, that is a great matchup. Then from there, the matchup with High Point. High Point was a team that won, I think, like 27 games last year. They're bringing back a lot of great players. I think one of the dudes that was on the freshman All American team is like a 7 foot center. Like he's coming back. Their leading scorer from last year is coming back, and we go to their place again. That's like another, like when you say bracket busters, man, that's there. And then the tournament, the NIT tip off, the first game you get a return matchup with Northern Iowa, which a lot of the same guys that you faced off against last year. Titan Anderson was first team All Missouri Valley this year. Jacob Hudson, who played last year, I think he's first team All NBC. Trey Campbell, I think he was second team All NBC. So that team is who you get to play first. Yeah, you're well versed in playing them. And then the potential matchup. If you win, probably going to end up playing Utah State, which is a top 10 mid major type of team from the Mountain West. Now, they lost their head coach, but they do still have some good guys on their roster, some guards that return, a freshman, Mason Fosloff, and another guard, Ian Martinez, who were both double digit scorers. So, um,
But
and then the game,
before you
go ahead.
continue, I just want to call out. So Campom has us 81st, right, in
Right.
his ranking, and so we played McNeese. They're 103, and then who else did you call out? Who else was it?
High Point.
Yeah, High Point is 108. So yeah, these are like they're not nobody's guys. These are good games, and if you like basketball, which it's the thing about you never know. Some people are like, "Well, I like North Texas, but I don't really watch basketball. I don't really like college basketball." You get that kind of thing because there's a range of that whole thing. Like Minnesota's ranked was it 59th, McNeese 103, Oregon State's high, Northern Iowa's 115. Like we don't play anybody that's not in the top 200 until we get to Mississippi Valley State and then Houston Christian in that
Yeah,
December
I
time
mean
frame.
Minnesota, like you said, they're ranked in the top 60,
Yeah,
but um, they're like picked bottom five in the Big Ten. They're
yeah.
like one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, which is crazy. But there are some names on that roster that you'd be familiar with. Lucille Patterson from Charlotte, he made his way there. Trey Edmonds from UTSA, um, who's over there at Minnesota. So there's dudes that we're familiar with.
Yeah, that Patterson
Um,
dude, he killed us that last time. I mean,
Oh yeah,
he just
again,
ridiculous.
it goes back to everything we talked about: physical athleticism. We didn't have a dude that could match up with him.
Like, could
Um,
somebody please just bump this guy? Just make the shot
yeah,
difficult for
hey,
him.
Jonathan Massey this year.
Yeah.
Talking about High Point, Jonathan Massey played them 3 times last year, and twice played in High Point's arena. I tend to think like, hey, he's been there before, and so maybe he can have some pointers for some of the guys. So it's just an intriguing storyline type thing. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
High Point lost on their home court in their conference tournament last year to Longwood, Jonathan Massey's team, by 1 point in overtime. So maybe they want to have some, fight back for some revenge towards him, type thing. So those were the games. I know there was like Oregon State in there. That's a home game, and then some of the hopefully, and then the App State game that they added. A lot of buzz about that on Twitter today. App State's is not they're not picked. I don't think they're picked to win the Sun Belt. I think they're probably top five in the Sun Belt. I don't know exactly what they were picked. Like High Point and McNeese State, they're both picked to win their conference. Um, but App State is a really they're kind of like who was the team we played last year? The Towson.
Yeah.
They play. It's like a rock fight type thing. Um, so it's a good matchup for us, or maybe like playing Sam Houston State.
Yeah. Yeah. This for me, this is what I like about college basketball is that you're like it's the same game, right? You're like, "Oh, there's five guys and they play, some version of whatever, but you can get just wildly different games, just because of the style they want. Like, yeah, these guys they screen and roll, And these guys don't ever stop moving, and just the way they defend, the type of guys that they recruit, the type of coaches they have, you get some crazy things, and some of it's not fun. Sometimes you're like, I hate playing that team. Like I mean, like UAB always has talent, and they just always have like defensive ends playing forward, and, and sometimes like, come on, dude, this is kind of whack. But like
I think both UAB and UNC hate playing each other
yeah,
because they're just like complete opposite. I mean, everything that they did bothered us. Everything that we did completely bothered them.
yeah.
So that was make fun. And for the casual listener out there, I was mentioning bracket busters. Like back in the day, there was always one weekend where mid-major teams, when it was getting to be the time, like right before the NCAA tournament, mid-major teams would play each other from different conferences, different matchups, and it would be like to help boost their resume or whatever.
Hmm.
And so they call ESPN called it bracket busters. Like, and it was cool, but that went away, and you don't really see that as much anymore. You don't see these mid-major teams playing each other in the non-conference because again, they're trying to boost their resumes, they're trying to make their analytics look good, and so credit to all these teams that have been willing to schedule us: McNeese, High Point, Appalachian State. Like our style of play for the past couple of years, it's not appeasing to the eyes, and so maybe that doesn't, coaches don't want to face that. But if I was a coach, like I would want to face that in the non-conference. I would want to face as many styles as I could, and North Texas has been so unique. Why wouldn't you want to play that?
Yeah, exactly. Like I would like to play a team that just guards every possession, and treats every possession like it's the most important thing, because then you have that on tape. 'Cause you have it as a reference point. I mean, like, I was saying sort of about that in like football. I was like, I think it's a little bit of a blessing that the football squad got their behinds handed to them by Texas Tech, because it's easier to say, hey, like when you're blocking, this is how you need to block. Because now you remember when that dude threw you 15 yards away. You remember when he blocked through your face. You remember that? You're like, yeah, yeah, I remember that. That's how you should block. It's so much easier to just get him to do that. And so yeah, you play like a North Texas. Like, remember when I said you got to treat every possession like important? Did you see how they did it? Did you see the way this guy was guarding it? Did you see the way that they were just defending everything and not giving anything up? That's how you need to do it. I think sometimes, I think all the time, that is the best way to teach somebody, rather than just telling them, "Hey, every possession's important." Like, no, no, this is what it looks like when every possession's important. It looks like a bunch of crazy guys. That's what you need. Um, so speaking of styles, do you anticipate any change from Hodge?
Golly, that's the question. We've heard it for what? How many years now in a row that we will play faster than we have before? Are they going to break the like? I was going to ask you the same thing. Like, their tempo has been ranked 363rd, 360, which there's only 363 teams. Like, are they going to get like above 320 this year?
I I don't see how that changes. Like I could see them like, well, we want to go faster, but I think when it comes down to it, you're gonna default to what works, right? Like, hey, this won us a lot of games, right? This way of thinking, of operating. And I think a lot of what they say, we want to play faster, they want to play faster in moments. It's not really like, yeah, we're gonna just run. It's when we get the ball here, we want to run. And then some of it, it's also like the version of players you have. Because I think I asked, um, what's his name? Yeah, Mac, right? I was like, so like it looked like, yeah, I know you were trying to run. He was like, well, sometimes Tyler Perry just gets the ball and he wants to stop it, and I'm like, you need to go. But he was like, no, it's walking down the court. So, but then also that's like sort of who you recruit, right? If you recruit a guy that wants to bring the ball up and cook in the half court, it's hard to be like, all right, now go run. And if you get a guy that wants to run, it's hard to slow him down, right? Just how it goes. You can coach him, but you're not gonna flip him, right? They're not. You're not gonna just completely change him. It's like you get a greyhound dog. You can be like, hey, let's go for a walk. It's like, I want to run. You're gonna have to do a little trotting if you have a greyhound. Take it for a walk.
Yeah. I mean, I could see them getting above 300. I could see them being in the 200s. And the only reason like I say that is they are not the players that they brought in are not efficiency studs. They're not guys that shoot, like a John Bugs, Jason Edwards, Reuben Jones, Aaron Scotts. Those guys shot high percentages from the threes. You can milk the clock. You could make every possession really count with them. I don't think you have that in this roster. So I think you do have to play a little bit faster, but you can still play gritty and grind people down, but you do it more with your athleticism. Like, I've always wanted them to be like San Diego State. I think like they could be more like San Diego State, whose tempo was like in the 260th, somewhere in there, like on Ken Palm. So, but
Well,
when you think of San Diego State, you think of them playing really slow because you think of their defense. But now their tempo is not fast, but it's still a little bit slow. They just wore people down on the defensive end of the side ball. So I mean, look at they played North Texas this weekend. They beat SMU 82-78. They put 82 points up. I mean,
yeah, I
I,
mean, it's also scrimmage where you're not treating every possession. You kind of want to see this, and there's a lot more up and down. I will say,
right, I
like I
know.
said, I don't think you're wrong. I'm not. I don't have I'm just saying. I think a lot of it depends on who the point guard is and what kind of style they are. Right. Whoever we say you are a primary ball handler, that's going to influence it. And here's my evidence. In 2019, we finished 294th in pace. Our point guard was Ryan Woolridge, who was a go 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 guy. He was a get it and go. He was our best fast break player. Um, and the next season, Javion Hamlet, we were 350. Next one, 350. Was it 22, 358, 23, 363. This is in the Tyler Perry years, obviously, and then the 360 again. Jason Edwards was probably a go guy, but I don't know that Reuben Jones was like. And then I think everything was like, hey, let's save our legs, and it was like kind of circumstance thing. And so,
Ruben was a go guy
yeah,
because he played at Houston Yates, and that's all they did. They pressed and they ran.
but but but,
I, you,
but he had played in the system, and that's what I'm saying is that like he also wasn't the primary guy because he was hurt all the time, and then he wasn't even getting the ball. And I mean, I think in those games where he played, we were a little bit better. We had a lot more fast break opportunities, and he would find some things. But we're talking overall season. I think it really depends on who our primary guy is. But yeah,
okay, so as
Brian
it stands
Woolridge.
right now, Jasper Floyd is your primary guy, and his percentage of his points on fast break was like 24.4%, which was 91st percentile. But I will caveat that by saying that he did have a ton of steals, so maybe he was getting steals and he was getting layups.
Where did Fairfield finish in their pace last year? Did you know off the top of your head?
Their pace was, and it was like 61st, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Uh,
it really, like I
their
said,
pace was 141st.
okay. I would like to see us bump up a little bit. I don't like us being Virginia all the time. Although I understand the value of it. I get it. I think it's good, but I think it's just so much more easy to win if you can get a turnover, right? And so, like, yeah, run off turnovers. But I think if you do that, you have to be okay with some terrible whatever. But I think all due respect to Matt Stone, I like Matt. I don't want him in the fast break. Like, yeah, I don't need him running the floor, catching and shoot. I haven't seen him catch and shoot threes at any clip where I'm like, okay, if we get Matty Stowe running the floor, he's wide open on the wing. It's the three ball. We'll go ahead and put it on the scoreboard right now. No, I haven't seen him like fly down the lane. You're like, oh yeah, give him the ball because he's gonna, he's gonna rock the rim, baby. He's gonna rock the rim, Matty Stowe. Not gonna happen. He is what he is. So what I like is that if we have the right kind of guys out there, right? We have some finishers in space, some guys with some springs in their legs and some speed, then it doesn't matter. We were very bad sometimes running the break where I was like, oh my god, we look like the Washington Generals out here. It's like, whoop, whoop, whoa, we're falling. I was like, all right.
Yeah, look,
To me, I don't know that that's always coaching. I feel like that's just fundamental basketball. Like you've been running and getting layups your whole life, and if you're any kind of good, right, you've been getting layups and scoring and stuff. And so I feel like that's just the easiest like transition basketball. That's like, all right, I'm at the playground again. I'm, I'm 14 and I'm just gonna get a wide open dunk or finish in traffic or whatever it is. And that's just kind of it. And if you don't have it, you just don't have it. I know there's an organized break and you can have all these other things, but I'm just talking about we get it. And it's hey, it's 3-on-2. Whoever the first three guys or the 2-on-1, whoever those guys are, can you finish right? If you can do that, then yeah, suddenly you're great. And a lot of times, it's some guy that can finish around the rim. This is where Ryan Woolridge was great at this. He was so fast. He would attack the rim. He would either finish, draw a foul, and then he was terrible at shooting free throws, or having somebody behind him who could finish, and they would just get the easy layup, the little tap in. That's how you do that. You got like a Ryan Woolridge with an Aaron Scott. We would have scored so much more easily in some of those years, and we wouldn't have needed a Zach Simmons to to show us his Tim Duncan moves.
I think when you look at this team, Latrell Jossel, Jasper Floyd, Jonathan Massey, all top 85 percentile in steals per game. And Jossel and Floyd were in like the top 95%.
Easy buckets. That's what I want.
That translates to them being able to get out and run more just because of getting defensive stops. And then Walker in there too. Like, I mean, he's a really good defender. He was a guy that could shoot the gaps and he was good at anticipating things. So I think, if you're putting those three guys out on the floor, four guys, I think we're going to see a lot more easy buckets come. And I think they're going to have to get them because I don't think their half court offense will be as um,
it's efficient.
effective. Yeah, efficient.
Yeah. So I mean, that's always the thing, right? It's like, do those steals translate against better talent? Like last year, we lost 66-62 to LSU, right? And would this team lose by 4 points to that team? I don't know. Like you kind of you don't want to answer last year's questions just all the time. You don't want to focus on that because last year was last year, just completely different thing, right? Um, I think there's a lot of questions here for this squad. There's some dudes. I would love to have Jason Edwards back, for a lot of reasons, but I don't know that we lost a lot and just getting eaten right in here. I think
Yeah.
the other part is that like I thought that Jason Edwards was too out of control for my tastes. Sometimes we're like, hey, we need a bucket. Here's a guy that already has 28 points. Obviously, he's the go-to guy, but he had no patience. He's like, all right, it's time to go 150% attack the rim. And like, I mean, I much more appreciated a Javion Hamlet in those situations, a Tyler Perry in those situations, and I mean, even a Ryan Woolridge sometimes. Um,
Right.
and so like, yeah, where you're like, well, this guy scored more and he was, explosive. Like, yeah, but in some situations, you need somebody that can control the moment. And so, like, I like that we have it seemingly have some of those guys that could do that. Now, it's all easy to look at, like highlight tape, look at statistics and see what's going on. Can you perform? Can this team gel? Can it become a fist? Right? It's not just fingers, right? We don't know. I'm excited to find out. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. 2 weeks away.
November 5th, against Evansville. That's sort of a warm up game. That's at Ohm Tuesday. It's a Tuesday game. So don't make any plans. Tuesday, November 5th. You're gonna be filled up on Halloween candy. Everybody, you make your way out in Denton. You know, so you buy some waters, I guess. Save up the thing. I'm excited about it. I wish I could make it out. I was looking at the schedule. I was kind of hoping something that's kind of near me. I was like, man, maybe they can call up Josh Shirts and say, hey, can we get a gaming deal? Man, that would have been great.
Yeah, I'm really contemplating driving to the McNeese State game because it's about 2.5, almost 3 hours away, but it's
Yeah,
not bad. I mean, it's
it's
high quality
doable.
basketball.
It's doable. I like that. Yeah, I mean, again, I was kind of looking at this. I don't see anything that's super easy for me to get to. That's one of the negatives of MGN HQ being here in the Middle West. All right, well,
Well,
I like
you go
that.
to
Oh,
the Wichita State game. That's not.
yeah, it's like 4 hours away. I mean, like I said, it's not easy. I can do it, but then I think the Wichita State game is like midweek. Yeah, it's like a Wednesday. It's again, it's like so it's really 2 days I got to be out because I got to go out there and I can't just turn around. I don't want to drive in the middle of the night in January, right? In Kansas, it's gonna be like snowing or something like that. There's nothing out there. There's no frame of reference. Just snow, snowscape.
Driving through the cornfields.
Yeah, I was asking some of the guys here, like that living around here about driving. And it's like, yeah, it sucks. I one time drove through like Nebraska, and like they were like, I couldn't see anything. I don't know where I was going. It was awful. It was the worst.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm not excited about that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, just before we go, in the last like 2 or 3 minutes here, I want to get your thoughts on the football squad since you're here, if you have any, if you want to put them on the record.
They have a good offense, and their defense is it's not as bad. I mean, as it could be. It could be a little bit better. But
Are you on
look, I mean,
the Are you on the Fire Capone train?
um, I don't know. I don't think so. Whatever Eric Morris wants to do, I'm perfectly cool with. As long as he keeps bringing in guys like Chandler Morris, he can make whatever decision he wants to make. I mean, they've shown that they can play good defense at home. They haven't shown they can play good defense on the road. So that's a problem. Memphis is a really good football team. I mean, they got a lot of weapons offensively. That's a really good quarterback. Maybe one of the best, maybe the best quarterback you're going to face throwing the ball wise all year. So, I mean, people were talking about that being a college football playoff type of team. And you went toe for toe with them on the road. So, yeah, you gave up a lot of points. But there were times when the offense wasn't scoring that the defense kept them in the game early on. So, like, I don't know, it's tough. I think the injuries have really hampered the defense.
Well, it's not only injuries, but it's like just guys missing, right? Like Sproles had to transfer because he, doing no nos, and then was it? Yeah, there was the Ishim Young injury, and then BJ Allen was part of the no no squad, and so like you're getting them back, but that's what I'm saying is that like Cam McFarland, what is he? Redshirt freshman, sophomore, basically an underclassman. You have 8 underclassmen as big time contributors on the defense, right? Either on the nickel squad, like Colin Lewis, Cam McFarland, Quentin Hammonds. They're all there playing big minutes. I think they've played well, but you're like, oh, how do they allow that? I mean, we had the defense to guard it up, right? We didn't get to Seth Hennigan because they have a good offensive line. He did a play action. They called a shot and they got it. They beat our freshman corner, our freshman safety. Like when you're designing a plays, you're like, let's get a fast dude against a freshman safety on play action, right? That's like offensive play caller 101. Like, what are some good plays to throw down the field? Let's find their let's find their inexperienced secondary guy, give him some eye candy, and then throw it over the top with our good receiver. Like that's it. I didn't love the three high look. I understand it. I get it. Um, but I think you're kind of asking a lot of a guy who hasn't really ran a defense before, and I think that was the part that I'm like, we can't. I would have rather had a veteran guy or just somebody that's proven some things.
Yeah, I mean, when you lose ultimately what was your best defensive player before the start of the season and in that vital position, like it sucks because then you have to adapt, then you have to change and they've done some of that, going to the 3-4 and it's worked. Like I said, I mean they have been a adequate defense at home and they just haven't been good enough on the road. But let's see how they play against some other teams on the road. Like, can they hold UTSA down, or can they get better? Can some of these guys get better over time? So like I'm not like fire Capone right now. I mean he's done enough I think to keep his job.
Yeah, 5 straight 3 and outs. Right? If you're like, hey, man, they 5 straight 3 and outs against Memphis. You're like, oh, that's did we go up by 12? That's the time you take a 2-3 score lead, right? You thinking about it. You're like, hey, we probably go up 2-3 scores. Then Memphis makes a run, and you kind of hold them off, right? That's what you're thinking if you get that. But so everybody's like, oh, 653 yards of offense. That defense. I mean, yeah, but we're forgetting that they gave them. Like, we need 5 stops from you guys. Sure, here they are. Nice block of time. 5 straight 3 and outs. Not even just
Yeah,
like stops. 3 and outs. Here's the ball right back to you. They didn't go nowhere. You get great field position, right? So you can probably miss on a couple of those drives, but you go score a couple touchdowns there. You have a little cushion, right? And all that said, they were one play away from one play and a 2 point conversion away from tying the game or having the opportunity to tie the game, however you want to look at it. And
yeah.
yeah, so there's a lot of it where I'm like, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's how I feel about it. But I've talked enough about it.
Look, I mean, if you got Chandler Morris back there slinging, it doesn't really matter. Like you could try, like if you're Capone, you're like, I'll just try whatever. I mean, they had opportunities, they missed tackles at times on those crossing routes. Yeah, that's frustrating. But at the same time, it's like, but I drew up the play, you were in position, you just didn't make the play. So
And then you look at who's not making those plays. Again, freshman safety, freshman nickel corner. I get those guys. It's like, hey, you were in the right spot 9 out of 11 times, and you got beat the 2 times. Obviously, we don't want that. You want to coach them up hard and whatever, but they're likely to improve, right? Underclassmen are likely to get better. If you look at the high performers, fifth year senior safety, fifth year, defensive tackle, fifth year, like everybody has been in football. I said this before. You look at Pro Football Focus's grades. Everybody on there is a upperclassman. The only outlier, Evan Jackson, sophomore from North Texas, is one of the third highest graded safety in the league. And so you're like, hey, well, maybe we're doom and glooming when we shouldn't be, or at least I say we, but you know what I'm saying, right? Not you and I, but we.
yeah,
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited about the basketball season. We're gonna try to get Greg on the show, and talk about it, and do this and that and whatever. Try to get him to write about it. Do me a favor. Go on meangreennation.com. Subscribe to one of the things. Do the monthly one if you want. You don't have to do the yearly one. That way, we can kick Greg some cash for his time. He's a very
I
valuable
get
and important
paid. I
person.
get paid well enough, so you don't have to
Well, you can do it.
get
That
Adam the get Adam the cash. I don't need any cash.
well, that's the other part. Is like I don't know if you listened to the last show. My wife wants to go to the presidential suite in Memphis next time we're there. She saw it at the Holiday Inn that we stayed at. She's like, "This place has a presidential suite." I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "How come we didn't stay at that?" And I was like, "I don't know. I mean, we don't. I don't have the
Mm,
subscriber base to afford the presidential suite at the Holiday Inn." So that's our goal. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening to the show. We appreciate it. Go Mean Green.